Should we wait until people are ushered in, I guess?
We should get started.
Yes?
I will do the ushering.
Oh, wonderful. So this is very exciting. I'm told the three of you, this is your first time at Reelworld Film Festival, so welcome. I'm looking forward to talking about short films, one of my favorites. I think I'd like to begin a bit with, short films have a very brief amount of time to have a lasting impression, and with this limited amount of time, how do you decide what aspects of your story to focus on and which parts to leave out? And can start with you, Emily.
Yeah, that's the tough question. I think it's really easy to get attached to certain elements of your script or your project. But for Snakeskin specifically, I do think that the genre kind of helped weed out the more frivolous parts because it's a magic realist film. So in these kinds of genres, there's a magical element that kind of drives us discovering more about whatever we want to reveal about a character or a theme or something like that. And instead of focusing on explaining the magical element, it's about that core theme. And so I think the genre really forced me from the very beginning to be like, what do I want that to be? And it's about unraveling our main character and unraveling her past and her struggles. And it's just truly about that. So it was a bit easier in that sense to just kind of shave off, maybe a certain, scene that wasn't working whenever I discussed it with the other creatives on the team, or a certain character that wasn't driving that specific core heart of the theme. And so, yeah, it's just really about defining that central, what you want to be revealed to the audience, yeah.
Well, Quan, do you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah, I make a lot of short documentaries, and I think it's a great format for people to just, learn about a story, learn about a person that you otherwise wouldn't hear about and wouldn't know just over breakfast, or have a coffee and watch that film. And a quote that I really like to quote from a short doc director named Ben Proudfoot. He says, if you're going to a gallery, it's not like the smaller paintings are worth less than the bigger paintings, it's just, they're all art, and they're all worth and have their own worth and have their own place in the world. So I really think short films are that to me, and it's a lot of how filmmakers like us start anyways. And I don't really see shorts as a stepping stone to features, and especially me as a cinematographer first and foremost, I think it's a great place to practice my craft and show people what I can do.
And well, Jordan, the opening for your film, it is like art. I remember the first scene with the looking up the sky and the trees. It really drew me in from the beginning. And for you, when you're creating a short film, how do you decide what will go in it and what won't, and to tell that narrative?
Yeah, when I think about short films or just stories in general, it's pretty easy to tell the story from the beginning and go over a certain character's overall arc of their life or their story. But I feel like with short films, you can really focus on the current and what's happening now in their life, as opposed to going all the way back, explaining all of these details and explaining where they're going. So with my short films, I like to drop people right into the center of what's happening right now, usually at the moment of either this character has experienced something that will drastically affect their life. But I feel it's a lot harder to pick a specific moment in this character's life, because you can go on and on about what's going on and what's going to happen, but focusing on what they're going through in that current moment as opposed to everything else, I think is my usual focus.
Jordan, could you tell us a little bit about your film, because some people will have an opportunity to see it very soon. Tell us about your film and how you set the tone and the mood.
So my film was called Oshkiyaya. That is an Anishinaabe word, which translates to someone young / something new. And the basic story is like this. It's a coming-of-age story, and it is loosely based off of my upbringing and the relationships that I've had in my family. But, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no, I was just like you were telling us about your lovely film, what it's about, and how you went about setting the tone and the mood of your film, because it has a very distinctive tone.
Yeah, so it is a little bit morbid, but death plays a huge part in my film. I feel like most people, if not all, have experienced death or loss in their lives at some points, and using that as a catalyst to like try and involve the audience to figure out what happened to this person, because at the beginning of the film, there is a scene where this young boy is like sitting at the grave of someone. You don't know who, and it's basically the journey of trying to figure out who this person is and what it means to all these characters in the story, and how they like circle around again.
Does anybody want to jump in from there? Like, tell me about your film, and also how you went about setting the mood. Like,
Yeah, I second you. I think, as short filmmakers, we tend to find success in writing about what we know and what we relate to. And for me, my film is about a Vietnamese tailor who came to Canada in the 80s as part of the Vietnamese boat people, and how since then he has used his craft to build a new life and then to also help others. And the story came to me by him telling a friend of mine while just like measuring this person. It's like, hey, so here's your chest size, and I came to Canada in the 80s on a boat. So I really wanted to tell his story while he's working. And that really worked. I shot the whole film with him just sitting in his desk doing his normal thing and just talking off camera to me. And I think that really, really shined in just the authenticity. And he's just a great storyteller. And I also really related to his story. I didn't come here on a boat, but I also left everyone I knew and everything I knew behind and came here and now using film to create a new life for me. So it was a really interesting journey for me to experience as well.
yeah, it was a beautiful film. And Emily, your film, I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about your film, because it has a beautiful mixture of a reality and a dreamlike sequence. And so tell me about creating the mood and what you wanted to convey with your short film.
Definitely. I guess similarly to you, it's a very character-centric piece. And so it was kind of like just emerging from what the character was giving us through the process of writing and casting and everything. And the dreamlike quality, I feel like, is not only something that is true to the genre, but I knew I wanted to have this quality because you can tell the main character is in a very hazy state. She is unclear about a lot of things. And I think just making that a more visual point. I'm a production designer by trade, so that's just the way I think more visually. Just externalizing that out of the character is what kind of gave it that dreamlike mood and tone, yeah.
So Emily, tell me a little bit about your process. Like, how long did it take for you to make that short film, and how did you begin? How did you do it?
Oh, well, the first draft of that script was actually submitted to a Latino screenwriting competition, and it went through a few rounds, but ultimately didn't make the cut. So while the strikes were happening, I kind of met I joined a writing circle and we reworked it. We made it more of a queer story. and just reworked that script to really be to the core of it. And after that, I had already built like a crew that I was comfortable with creatively, and who I trusted. I think that's a really important thing. I trusted them to just make art together, and that took us about 2 months of pre-production, and we shot it over only 2 weekends, and then post took months, pretty much, yeah. But throughout the process, it was a labor of like love and creativity, yeah.
Wonderful. And Quan, you have a 12-minute film. How long did it take you to create that film, and take us through your process?
Yeah, I remember at the time I had just finished a feature doc, and I put everything in it. Like you mentioned before, when you look at the credit, it's like a lot of my name, and I just do a lot of things. So in that feature doc, I was really burnt out. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna make this a feature. I'm not gonna sink another year into a film. And then it did take a year still to make this short film. And that comes from like, pitching to CBC, thinking that I would get it for sure, and I didn't get it. And then writing grants, and I didn't get the first couple, and then I get a couple, and I was okay, I have money to make it. But that took like 2-3 months, and then the filming took 4 or 5 days total. But I really wanted to not just make the docs that I've done before, where I just interview and then shot a little bit B-roll, and then that's it. But I really wanted to shoot a little bit, see what I have, shoot a little bit more, edit together a story, and then figure out the B-roll that I have. And interestingly, after a few shoots, Tam, the character of my film, was like, hey, I have these discs from 1990 of my first trip back to Vietnam. Do you want it? I was like, do you know what's on it? And he did not know. So it took another couple months to develop it. Missed the hot dogs deadline, but that's okay. Probably wouldn't have gotten in anyways. And then, so in total, it took a year from the first time meeting him to when I premiered it. So,
Wonderful.
Yeah, but it was worth it.
And Jordan, how long did it take for you to make your film, and take us through your process a little bit?
I think in total, from conception all the way to the final cut, it took a year and 9 months, I believe. I spent a long time writing it because this was actually my first short that I wrote. And luckily enough, I didn't have to jump through all these hoops that these other two had to. We applied to the Indigenous Screen Office production grant, which we thankfully got. But we shot the film over the course of 3 days, but we had 3 months of pre-production because there was also a huge hurdle of coming from Toronto, like being based in Toronto, and we shot it back in my hometown of Thunder Bay, which is about, yeah. For those who don't know how far it is, it's about, driving, it's about 16 hours, pretty far. So we had to fly up all of our gear, and thankfully it was my hometown, so we're very familiar with it. But yeah, shooting took 3 days. I probably would have liked a 4th day, but things happen all the time. But we finally finished our final cut back in a year ago, actually, in November.
Yeah. Well, they definitely all sound like labors of love. I'm wondering, what is the most challenging part of making, you can say, this short or any short, but if we can start with the ones that are featured here at this film festival, anybody can jump in, but yeah, if you can tell me the most challenging part about making your film.
I think for any films and any project, getting it seen is just as hard, if not the hardest part of making a film, and especially for shorts. I always struggle with what is success when you're making a short like this? Is it screening at the TIFF or Hot Docs or Vancouver International Film Festival? Is it making back your money? Is it meeting other people, proving? So I'm always just in a world of self-doubt. but I would say that was the hardest part, and that's what I'm learning to do. And I'm also realizing that the short films at least that you know or you see shortlisted on the Oscar run, it's all has a lot of this thing called impact producing, and it's just like, you know, with these shorts, there's also a budget of creating impact out there, right? Like going to different communities to show your short, putting on community screenings for the right viewers, attending all the festivals for the short, and networking. I think that's been really eye-opening for me, and not just like going on Film Freeway and hit submit away, but it's actually attending these festivals. So that's been the hardest part for me, for sure.
I could go. I think just also adding on to Quan's thing is also the like anticipation of like once you finish your project, and like that constant doubt is like, is it good? Is it good enough for people to see? Am I going to get the reaction that that I want? But yeah, it's a constant battle of trying to like jump over that hurdle and being okay with what you made, because I've received like a pretty good piece of advice that even though this is like one of my earlier projects, I can always go back and do something better the next time.
Yeah, to add on that, yeah, I think it's so difficult to really gauge sometimes, like, because you were in it the whole time. You know what you could have done better. You know what could have gone wrong at this stage and what could have been right. Especially with shorts where you're on so many constraints, right? And by the time that you've finished it, you're blinded as well by so many little things from seeing it so much. But I think that, you know, if you have a team that you trust, you know, they're kind of your seeing eye dogs, and they're kind of the ones that, you know, push you through, you know, finishing production and finishing the project and motivating you, I guess, to make sure it gets out there and so forth.
Quan, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, but also I think to recognize that it's hard to make a film, it's hard to make a short, and especially scripted. I feel like, I don't know, you just pull it out of nowhere and now it's a thing, so you should also pat your back and say, like, it's a good job just to create something already, you know.
I'm very curious about stories from set or stories from the field. Like, just asked you a question about what's the most challenging part of making a film, but do you have any stories about your worst day on set where you thought, is this going to actually work? But, you know, obviously you're all sitting up here, so you made it work. But yeah, any set stories?
Oh my God, what didn't go wrong? I think because we shot the whole project in Vancouver, and we had to get a lot of like, the city of Vancouver has a lot of, you need a permit basically to shoot exterior, and we had a lot of locations that were exterior. So just going through that process in itself was crazy. There was also like some issues with, I guess, like some extras not showing up for a party scene, which you need extras for. But it ended up being a really beautiful thing when just a lot of like the crew just like stepped up, put on a silly hat, and just danced in the background, and we had a good time. So yeah, there's always a solution to everything, even though, yeah, it might not seem that way at first.
You made it work. Jordan, yeah?
Yeah, because we shot in Thunder Bay, which is pretty far north, we were in pretty dense forest for a couple of our scenes, so there was a ton of mosquitoes. It was like the middle of June, I think, and we were getting swarmed for 12 plus hours by mosquitoes. There's one shot in the film, if you're able to see it, you can see all of the mosquitoes in front of a truck. If you just pay close enough attention, you can see the thousands of mosquitoes that are floating all around. My DP got a huge welt on the center of his forehead because the mosquito just stuck there and he didn't notice it, and it left a mark. Yeah, but I think, I don't know if it was because of the mosquitoes, but we lost a scene that day because we also ran out of daylight.
Well, now, Quan, now I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean,
Any mosquitoes?
for me, my editor is my wife, and who was my fiance at the time, and
You made it. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah, we made it. But just the constant struggle of like, do I tell her to go work, or should we keep hanging out, or like giving her a fake deadline, and just like stressing about it. You know, like you should really go edit in their office. So that's always been the hardest thing, and still is, because she's editing my next film too. but yeah, that was my hardest. It's different with the doc too, like because I do so much. I did so much of it by myself. It's just me in an editing room with my wife, and while I'm shooting, it's just me and another person helping out. So yeah, it's just close-knit relationship and making it work.
Navigating
Still
all that.
remaining married.
Well, I'm glad that you got married, so that's a very good sign. Do you each of you have a favorite scene in your short, and can you tell me why it's your favorite? Does it carry a special significance, Emily?
I'd have to say that my favorite scene is the opening scene, which...
Can you describe it? So
yes, it's basically this sandy area with a single statue. It's supposed to be a dream sequence, and then a snake coiling around the statue, and then our protagonist having this dream. And I think it was my favorite to shoot because we were really on a tight schedule with the tides at that specific beach. And also with the daylight, we had to get it at a specific time, at a specific tide level. And we also had to climb down some rocks, get the gear down on some rocks, and we had to walk a long way down the pier. It's Iona Beach, if anyone is familiar with Vancouver. Even though we were all like rushing and stressing, we all left that morning just very, full of good spirits, and this is what filmmaking is about, and it was just a wonderful scene to make, and I'm happy with how it came out as well visually. Yeah.
I really love that scene as
Yeah,
well. But
for
yes,
me, it's maybe not a scene, but like favorite aspect of making this film was just to work with the composer for the first time, and he's not a Vietnamese composer, but he's a very talented person, and somehow I sent him some instruments that I like. And some
what
songs.
kind of instruments?
There's a specific instrument in Vietnamese music called đàn bầu, and it's like one string, and somehow you play it. I don't even know how it works, but but I sent it to him. I sent a picture of it, and then he made it sound like that. I was like, how? But I remember receiving the track, because I think anyone made a film, if you look at your rough cut and you're like, oh no, this sucks, and that's how I felt, even though my wife's my editor. But I put in the music, and it's like, oh my God, I did it. So I remember that feeling really well, and it's just like, just the power of having a good team behind you was really cool, and now he's gonna score all my films. But yeah, I remember getting the music, and I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, music can lift a film and generate emotion in a very special way. Jordan, like your favorite scene and why?
So I have two answers. My favorite scene that is in the film is the opening scene, mainly because I think it is just the most beautiful part of the film. We spent a lot of time just like moving the camera around, trying to get the perfect frame, and I think we landed that for the first shot of our main character sitting down. And my second answer is actually the scene that we cut. In terms of like story and dialogue, it had some of my favorite interactions between two of the characters. So I think that's why I was so upset that we weren't able to get it.
Why did you have to tell me about the scene that was cut and why you had to cut it?
So mainly because we ran out of daylight is like the biggest part, and we weren't able to go back and film it because we were there in Thunder Bay for an allotted time, and we can go back and do reshoots. Our main actor is from a reserve very far up north, and it costs like $800 for them to fly in. So we weren't able to do that. But in terms of the story, it was like the first real connection two of the characters have, and there's a funny bit of dialogue, and our main character was supposed to smile for the first time in that scene. But yeah.
Well, hopefully you can save it for another film, longer film. Now I'm curious about what didn't make it into your films. Are there, like, if you had an extra 10 minutes, is there like something that you would have added to your short film? I mean, it's quite, I have to say, all the films, I hope the audience gets a chance to see them, because they're all beautiful and well-made and quite moving. But yes, if a bit more time and money, is there something that you would add to your film? Emily, do you want to go first?
I'm happy with how it came out as is. But if I had an extra 10 minutes, I think I would have just used it to, have more beats in between the scenes, make it a little more pensive. And a lot of the dialogue was cut down, and because as a result of that, it causes ripple effects and other things. So maybe preserving a bit of the dialogues that she has with some characters. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like with shorts, most of the time, the shorter the better. And I really planned to make a 20-minute film, and then it ended up being 12. But I couldn't figure out with my short, I find with short docs, what I'm searching for nowadays is like how to make a local story like mine more global and relate to more people. And I still haven't quite figured it out with this film yet, but it's something that maybe with my future films it'll be better. So one day I'll figure it out, and it's like, damn, I should have added something like that. Yeah.
I think you did figure it out. Like it was a very the immigrant story, but it was very personal, right? But I think the story resonated for a lot of people. But you raise an interesting point about all three of you have made very personal films, and do you ever think about how you can take personal films and make sure that they're universal and they reach the entire, like, other people who might come from different cultures? Like, any thoughts about either Emily or Jordan, if you want to jump in?
I think, like, in terms of like the themes in my film, there's a lot of relationships. There's a lot of like connection, and that's like the biggest thing is in the film is connection. I feel like most people can connecting with either their culture, their family, their friends, their passion, like filmmaking. But in terms of less visible themes, a lot of it has to do with like identity, because I grew up as a mixed indigenous person, was kind of torn between my indigenous side and my Vietnamese side. So just like kind of having that feeling of being lost as like a young kid, and like figuring out what you want to do and figuring out where you want to go and who you are as a person. I think a lot of people can connect with that.
Definitely.
I think that's a good first step, though, like identifying the themes. The one thing that I learned just from making this film and during my next one is just identifying like the relatable themes, relatable characters, and having that from the get-go, I think would really help reach more people. And I never did that with my past filmmaking, and I think what you said is great. It's like having a plan on how your film will reach more people by identifying what is it with this project that can reach other people. And then you can work it into the script, into the questions that I'll ask in my interviews, into my press kit, into how the film is marketed. I think knowing those sort of themes and how it relates to other people really helps.
Definitely.
Yeah, similarly, I think, yeah, instead of, having to, claw out the humanity from what you have, sort of having it baked in a way, definitely does help. Yeah.
When you say baked in, could you elaborate? That's very intriguing.
Yeah, just for example, there's a lot of ways you can be relatable. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a positive light. You can make a character that's just like you hate this person, but it kind of reminds you of someone you know. Or you could also, relate on the note of, like you said, like between relationships or like common struggles that are universal. So there's a lot of avenues to kind of, bake that into the story and the characters. And, yeah.
Definitely. I want to actually circle back to something Quan said about how do you measure or how do you judge success? And so for the three of you, like, what is success for you? You've made this film, you're here at the Reelworld Film Festival, but yeah, what does success look like? What is success for you when you're making a short film?
To me personally, in this case, apart from just getting it done and having, the completion be the success, it's also about, what can this project, bring out in people? It's something that the crew is proud of as well. Is it something that, the audience can take something from at home at the end of the day? And whether you choose to, distribute it through one channel or another, or even keep it to yourself, at the end of the day, you need to be happy with that feeling of just accomplishment and pride in what you have created, yeah.
So the actual act of creating it and the team together creating something that you're all very proud of.
Yeah, the joint process of creation and the culmination of that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question, but now thinking about it, it's like, there's the accolades, the awards, the nominations, and the festivals, but then I remember one of the first thing was someone telling me, oh my God, I teared up watching it. I was like, really? Because when you're so close to it, you don't really see maybe the deeper meaning to it. So that was really cool. But also, my mom finally understood what I do. Because when I tell her that I make documentaries, she probably thinks that, oh, it's like sit-down interview and archival picture. But this is more cinematic than that, and I think it was really cool for me to finally show something to my family back home and having them share it and be proud of it. So that was really cool. And then finally going to these sort of festivals and meeting others and going to some big festivals for the first time, I think it's really cool.
Yeah. Getting people to respond in person. And so, yes, Jordan, for you, what does success look like for you?
I think it's similar to the previous two answers of if anyone at all sees it, I think it's a success, but I think it's more important for me that the right people see it. I think a big accomplishment for me is that I showed the film to my partner's mom, and she cried a lot. I haven't shown it to my own mom yet because of the whole content of the story kind of revolves around her as well. But she was able to read the script at one point, and she also cried. So I think I hit the notes that I wanted to for the more important people in my life.
What does it mean? Oh, sorry, you were about to say something.
Oh, is your mom going to be here on Sunday or when your premiere?
She's back in Thunder Bay, unfortunately, so our next screening is actually back in Thunder Bay, so probably see it then.
What does it mean to the three of you to have that kind of emotional response? Because that is quite special, to create something and then have people connect with it and move them to tears or, whatever different emotions. Like, what does that mean to all of you? And tell me a little bit more about that experience. I don't know who wants to jump in first, though.
Well, we had previously screened this film before, and one of the photographers of the festival came up, and he was also Latino, and was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm trying to do this, and I have so many questions on how you did this and that, and I mean, and it was just such a special moment of, you know, I'm now in a position to be able to help people when I was in his position not too long ago. So I think it just really means a lot that, you know, not only is it being appreciated by the audience, but, you know, it also tells them that, you know, you can also do something like this. Yeah.
Definitely. You're about to jump in.
Yeah, no, I just think it's very special when people react to your film, and as filmmakers, I think that's what we're all trying to do, whether it's laughter, it's smiles, it's cry, and sometimes it's not at the right spots that you intend it to be, but I think that's what we all try to do here.
Yeah, definitely.
I think getting those reactions is very validating, not just in terms of like the art that I made, but because it's such a personal story, and like I poured my own life into it and my heart into it. It makes my struggle growing up, again, I feel validated in it, and seeing people react the way they did makes me feel better.
Yeah. It seems healing.
Yeah, it's very healing. It's very therapeutic.
Yeah. The three of you, do you have filmmakers who inspire you? And are there like things that you learned from them that you now use in your own craft and work? So I don't know who wants to jump in first, but
I think I can speak with short films specifically. Two big inspirations for mine were this one short called Para Ellos, or For Them. It was essentially this short film about two kids crossing the border, and there's a lot of like animatronics of animals they encounter along the way, and you eventually realize that it's a lot more sinister than it appears. And I think that I really took a lot of, you know, inspiration from that sort of like magic realist filmmaking, and also Andrew Thomas Huang. You've probably seen his work as like FKA Twigs music videos, but he also
Right.
does short films, kind of in this like surreal, dreamlike style. And from just watching these films, I guess I kind of, you know, got inspired on, you know, how to produce like dreamlike effects or certain themes in the story. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, as a filmmaker, it would be Ben Proudfoot, which is a short doc filmmaker, 2 times Oscar winner. And he just focused on short docs. It's really cool, and he shows that it can be a viable career. And he also focuses on profiles a lot, which I love. And the other one is Lance Oppenheim, very experimental documentary filmmaker that kind of broke my initial thoughts of docs have to be run and gun and whatever. Like, he shoots his doc on tripods a lot, and it just seems so like such a weird mix between narrative and documentary. And I saw that he just signed a deal with A24 with Robert, who plays Robert Pattinson as like the lead, and also I'm programmed in the same program as his film in another festival next month. So I'm very excited to be in the same room with him. So yeah,
you're getting closer and closer. Oscars
hopefully
next.
I can talk to him.
Yes, Jordan. So for you,
I usually take inspiration from like different filmmakers for each project that I do, but for my film premiering at this festival, I think the biggest inspiration was a Japanese director named Yasujiro Ozu. A lot of his content really matched in my like story and like the style that I wanted to portray, and it's like seemingly mundane but deeply emotional. So I think we paid a good homage to Ozu.
definitely. Now, as a career, to do this for your life's work, I mean, many people would say it's hard, you know, to continue working in film. And just wondering your thoughts, like, is this something where you want to make a career out of this, and can you, you know, because clearly there are people who are very successful doing it, but I would say probably it's a bit of a struggle to make a career. But is this, the three of you, like, where do you see your careers, and do you think you can make a viable life making these types of beautiful films?
I think yes, if you know, I'm just starting out in the indie world. I have worked in the union world for 3 years. But you know, indie is where like all the heart is, obviously. And this was my first directorial debut. I have a calling card now, and I'll see what comes of it. Yes, but even if not, just the filmmaking process in general, even if it's in a more corporate setting, I do still enjoy the process, even if it's not my story being told. But hopefully, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I work full-time as a cinematographer, and I hope that career will keep growing and I can shoot more interesting projects all the time, especially on the scripted side. But with my career as a short documentary filmmaker, I hope that I can keep doing it. And so far, I've been lucky enough to receive, you know, a lot of support from local arts grants in Manitoba, and they've always supported me so much, every organization there, and allow me to tell these deeply personal and sometimes fully in Vietnamese projects. And with this next one, I'm just getting even a bigger budget to get more people to help. So far it's been good. I hope I can just make 1 or 2 short docs a year moving forward, and yeah, keep telling these stories that only I can tell.
Yeah, I would also just like to make things for as long as I live. I like to joke around and say that I'm a full-time, part-time filmmaker, which is whenever I'm able to find work. But I also want to pass on the opportunities that I was given. I'm going to call her out right now, but one of my students, Sabiha, is here. She took one of the training programs that I ran recently.
Hello.
Yeah, I just want to do it as long as I can.
What advice would you give people, though, who want to be where the three of you are, like, and they have ideas and they have stories, like, how should they get started and how can they launch their careers making short films?
Just do it. I know it's easier said than done. But I only was able to get the confidence to do it through, you know, networking and having that crew around me of, you know, not only the writing group, but you know, the group of, you know, grips, camera people, costume people, hair and makeup that, you know, you build up with every project that you make. Some of them are paid, some of them are not. But after you kind of have that community and you're like, oh, I want to do this and that, you know, it's a lot easier to be uplifted and, you know, save up to do what you want to do, or in some cases apply for some grants and see what comes of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would second that. Definitely apply for grants. Not only having a budget helps make the film better and also sustain your career or your life while doing it, but also I feel like writing grants is so annoying, and you get a lot of rejections, but it helps your project every time. Just writing grants, and I think just making film in general is convincing someone else to believe in your project and believe in you, but you got to believe in it first, and being able to flesh out a 2-line idea into a 4-pager really makes you think of like what works, what doesn't work. And a lot of grants, sometimes they give feedback too, and especially if it's like a CBC or something, they actually like give you great feedback so that you can use that feedback to apply for other places. And you know, I always get rejected 2-3 times, and then suddenly 4, 5, 6, I get the money to make it. So it's been good for me to keep applying for grants, keep getting rejections, but then ultimately get the project better.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
I think I would just say immerse yourself as much as you can, whether that be writing grants or writing scripts, trying to get on sets. So I've been doing this for just over 2 years, and I feel like that is the path that I took, and I find that it's been successful so far.
Wonderful. Well, we've had such a good time. I've been told that we've run out of time, but I want to ask the audience if they have any questions for our panelists before we conclude. Oh, yes. Okay. I think they're going to get you a microphone.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about how you all found a producing partner. If you could talk a bit about that.
I do a lot of it myself, and I was lucky enough to work at a company where I was designing their pitch decks, and therefore I read all of it. And since then, I've pitched a lot, wrote a lot of stuff, and just got some really good advice from other filmmakers as well. But it's great for me to understand how to budget, how to, figure out E&O, how to figure out insurance, how to just figure out everything, so that even when I'm not doing it anymore myself now with this next project, I still know, when you have a structure, you have a script, you can kind of see how many days you need to shoot. And as a cinematographer, I can try to help the producer save money and then get hired again. But I really encourage people to just understand a little bit of those producing. And I know it's hard, that there's not a lot of courses out there to teach that. But yeah, just writing grants and just drafting a budget really helps me learning.
I was actually lucky enough for my partner to be my producer. She has a lot more experience than I, had a lot more connections, and I feel like this film was made mostly because of her. I would give it like 90%. Exactly, work with your partner.
For me, I had reached out actually to a producer from a film that I liked that I saw on a film festival. And he kind of helped me through the pre-production process, and then had to step onto another project. And at that point, I brought in another producer who I met because I was a production designer for a few of his shorts, and he kind of owed me the favor. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out and network, and yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I think to conclude, if you could just say when your film is screening so people can check it out.
Yeah, Snakeskin is screening this Friday at 1 p.m. in the Otherworldly Shorts block at the Paradise Theater.
Yeah, mine's screening on Friday at 11 a.m.
Mine is screening Sunday at 11 a.m. at the Paradise.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your process with us. And go out and see their films.